Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Special thanks to Dr. Batra and Dr. Fukan who took some time on explaining the rationale behind this forum and what's happening in the country. Today's first topic that this panel is going to address is about the future challenges for CFOs and how the finance function is evolving in the recent times. Now, what we can see is that we have already overshot the time. And therefore, we won't stand for very long in your way. We'll try and conclude this session on time. My colleagues who are from some of the best companies in the industry, we'll start with them. Now, the first question that comes to mind is how the finance function has moved from cost guardians to strategic growth partners. Now, as you can see, the finance function has evolved, especially for someone like me who's been in the industry for 40 years. I've seen it changing over last 15, 20 years. There's been a tremendous change in the finance function from being number crunchers to strategic partners with CEO. We have moved, we have become the capital allocators, we have become strategic partners to operations team, we have been monitoring businesses, and ultimately in many cases we have graduated to become CEOs of the company. So for the first part of it, on how this function has evolved, I'll request Dave to throw his views to the members of this forum and let us enlighten us on what he feels about it.
Hey, thank you, Ajay. And I have a sore throat, so please pardon me for the voice. Hope I'm audible, right? So most of the time, it is the CFOs have been associated with the cost cruncher or the cost guardian. I'm not sure why, but maybe because it's been a comfort zone for the CFOs for quite some time. When I say comfort zone, that comfort zone has also come because that's the expectation set for traditionally on the CFOs to take the difficult task or being the least populist decision in the organization. But today when I see the CFOs, they have emerged as long way they have gone. They make more forward-looking activities than digging into the history. When I say forward-looking, there is a significant time which goes in forecasting, scenario planning, as well as resource allocation. So if you'll ask me, where I spend maximum time, Ajay, today is that it starts with my portfolio assessment, that where does my portfolio stands in these three buckets of evolving and futuristic, which exactly mirrors something like a core, adjacencies, and future bets. And how do I as resource all these three types of businesses? And the second one is that where also the finance, especially where I spend maximum of my time, is the effectiveness of our go-to-markets. How are we effectively and efficiently reaching to our customers in the most cost-competitive manner? So these are the places where we spend time, and that's where I say that finance has moved along from a cost guardian to certainly a growth partner to the CEO.
Yeah, I agree with you. That's what I said. Probably we are, partners not only to the CEO but also to the operational teams. We are helping out with logistics, pricing part of it, the costing, and therefore providing a crucial support to the businesses. Sachin, what is your views on the subject?
So, Ajay, you are right in that sense. Still, I recall 23 years back when I joined this company. So, I am a CFO at LT Foods, Dawat Basmati, that is $1 billion. Then my boss's KRA used to be timeliness, accuracy, how accurate the financials would be, how timeliness the data can be presented, how things. Now the KRA has totally got shifted. Now my KRA is value creation, a sustainable, responsible value creation. From that ways, the companies, the status and other things, what we are thinking now as a CFO, we have to think beyond the numbers. The numbers, the kind of things previous speakers were saying, the digital aspects. The digital has taken away the numbers. The numbers, yes, they are the important factor in deciding upon the things that might be the digital things. There are things. They are the concepts like talk to the data, talk to the things, AI and AI ML and other things are getting into. How well you are equipped into that, how well you can sense a thing, how well you can project things in a rightful manner for the business to grow. That is most important and critical in this kind of dynamic environment. Being in this Basmati rice company, I am there. So all kind of turbulence, right from the turbulence and any kind of turbulence there are currently also. There is some kind of things that being maximum, my 45% of the export sales happens to be in the US. Recent times, Mr. Trump is very kind to me. So every day there is some kind of news that wakes me up. So numbers now doesn't matter. Yes, they are there, but the future aspects, that is more critical. You have to think beyond how I am creating value for the overall stakeholders, the overall things that has taken place.
Right. That's the earlier culture used to be just projections, which we used to call plans or budgets. And now with this evolving landscape,
Correct.
Things change every day.
Correct.
Now, second question which comes to my mind is what tools and KPIs can measure intangible assets like brand, innovation, and talent? Well, for someone who started his journey at a time when PCs were a rarity, computers had just come to India. I'm talking about late 80s. And then to a time when I was the CFO of a newly started company, and I found that we were totally lost without computers. This was early 2000. I couldn't, think of working on manual systems anymore. And first attempt when we started this company was to implement tele. And within probably 4 months, I found this was too restrictive. So we had to graduate to an ERP. And that's how we implemented SAP. Uh, then for purpose of evaluating the KPIs, particularly for brand innovation, capital allocation, monitoring businesses, and talent part of it, we adopted balance scorecard. In fact, it was considered as one of the best implementations in India at that time, and we won the BSc award way back into early 2000s. Uh, Again, when with the advent of technology, we found that newer systems were available to monitor brand innovation, talent, something like SAP success factors, something like now with AI coming in, digital innovation, and monitoring innovation, capital allocation, monitoring the retention of talent, and then companies based on these inputs plan their journey forward on how to retain talent, how to encourage innovation. Today, these are the buzzwords, at least in my group. I work for Tata Group, and Tata Group innovation and talent retention are two biggest issues, and we work very hard on it. Third question which comes to mind is how do finance leaders support bold innovation, because that requires money while maintaining fiscal discipline. So I would request Suman to throw some light on this aspect, followed by Aditya.
Thanks, Ajay. I think whenever somebody says innovation, they fear to come to the CFOs because they believe the CFOs will always say no, and it's always the and, right. I mean, I think the CFO's life lives on a balance of revenue, profit, cost, capital, courage, compassion. I think all of it, and part of it is innovation and physical discipline. But having said that, I do believe businesses in today's environment, Indian, global, cannot exist, will not continue to survive without innovation. And it's not about innovation of product, right? It's innovation about capabilities, innovation in talent processes, innovation in systems, and all of it requires capital. And of course, fiscal discipline is important. And the reason why the question comes, I believe, the reason why this question even exists is because there's an inherent belief saying that innovations means it will be detrimental to the P&L or the cash flow in the short term. And hence, as a CFO's role has evolved, I think, given how much we understand the importance of innovations for the, for the basic survival and thriving of the organization, balancing your fiscal discipline means an innate or an immense amount of planning that needs to go into it, right? So you will have to figure out how to ring fence your capital allocation to ensure that we support these innovations. Because in the quest for short-term goals, and I sit in a listed company, so of course there are quarterly targets and there are a lot of short-term investors in the market today. But you also know that you have to run this organization for the long term, for your key strategic stakeholders and your shareholders. So planning, I think, is very, very important when we think about how do we support innovations as the finance team, as the finance head for the organization, planning on capital allocation very diligently. Once you've planned for it, and I always say that's 50% of the job done, how do you put frameworks in place to ensure that you're not only reviewing and governing where this capital is being spent, but also looking at the modularities and the KPIs to assess if this is not going in the way it's supposed to, you can quickly reallocate your finances accordingly. And then also to build that discipline within people within the organization across, not only in finance, but more cross-functionally. I think Ajay said that you're not only partners to the CEO, you're partners to the operations team, to the HR team. How do you build that understanding with cross-functional teams on how do they evaluate innovations? How do you look at paybacks? How do you look at the return on investment? How do you build the commercial acumen of saying what does return on capital employed mean? And as recently in one of these sessions in ISB, we were teaching cross-functional leaders, right, on how do you look at return on capital employed, a term that's not often used, but very, very critical when you look at fiscal discipline or financial discipline when you're evaluating innovations. So yeah, that's a bit from my end. Thank you.
Hi. So I guess, Suman, you have covered most of the things. But, maybe I would just brief that perhaps innovation is not the requirement, but innovation nowadays is a survival. We all know we have the examples of companies like Xerox, like Kodak. Everybody would take away with you everything in case if you're not innovating. For me, like the new competitor after 5 years are one which are not born yet. So we need to keep evolving, keep thriving for ourselves. Whether it's a company, whether it comes to our functions as well. It's all about innovating. We all talk about jobs and others things when it comes to AI. So I think it's a survival for every company. It's a survival for every functions. And we as a finance partner needs to partner the business growth, which means that taking a weighted call. As it just mentioned that innovations is all about future growth. We need to participate in that, learn. But what is critical, what I've learned in my life is you never measure the depth of a lake with both legs inside. So you need to know where to draw the line. We should learn fast and fail fast and apply that in a recurring, regular innovation part. What's very critical for following a financial discipline is that once you have made a mistake, whether it is innovations or whether it is taking any new call for the organization, we need to learn from the mistake. If we are repeating the mistakes, it's a decision. And a decision to make a mistake is a crime. So perhaps I would say that we need to innovate, but we need to always be cautiously optimistic for that.
Thank you. So what I realized through journey of innovation in my group was it's not just product innovation. Product innovation is one part of it. Process innovation is something that drives in money It brings in efficiencies, and that's how we've been able to survive. It's a 100-year-old group, and we've been able to survive profitably over the last 100 years. Now, the next question which comes as a finance leader is how we have evolved as trusted advisors in boardroom strategy. As someone like me who sits on 6, 7 boards now, uh, and who has always been interacting with boards in my role as a CFO, I've always realized that CFOs have gained a new respect now amongst the board members. Uh, we were designated by the Companies Act 2013 as KMPs, and we have become important in our views. Our board respects our views. We are taken seriously, unlike past when our job used to be just to present accounts. So things have changed. So I'll request Deepak to throw some light on it. Deepak, sorry.
No, as you rightly said, right? So I think the CFO in a boardroom, right, is now not seen as somebody who is just kind of presenting the numbers and all, but somebody who's also expected to give insights, what went wrong, which is always you can present, but what we could have done to make it right, right? I mean, what are the insights? What are the environment which is kind of, let's say you can look at whether in terms of regulation, compliance, whether in terms of the newer markets. So the board will now look at or expect the CFO as a role or a function, not only just to, let's say, highlight the issues with the balance sheet or the P&L, but where we could have done better, what more we can do, what are the newer areas which one can look at. I mean, one of the classic, at least, which I have always faced is, given that my background as a banker, which is always on a buy or build story, right? I mean, whether you spend 3 or 4 years building in something or whether you end up buying. Now, it's a very critical and a delicate balance in terms of the capital allocation, the resource allocation, and also the board does expect inputs, insights, and let's say a recommendation as well as to how you guys think about it, and so that with that they can also take an informed decision around that.
You are right. We'll request Aditya to also throw some light on it.
Well, yes, quite a good points covered. What I would just add is, in short, it's all about your SWOT analysis, understanding the strength, understanding the weakness, looking about the opportunities which exist, and a thread through which we all put it together. The second point which comes to my mind is that why we are the true advisors when it comes to the board. It has to be two part. One, how do we do the storytelling together? It's very important that we understand what we are betting for, which means that to be realistic, or as the word says, it's very important to be cautiously optimistic, makes really the difference. And I guess it's always very, very important. What I have learned in my life is that you cannot be in a boardroom with only one plan. You need to have at least plan B, and if possible plan C. But there doesn't exist only one route to the map. There has to be plan B and plan C to work around and get the best out of it. So perhaps for me, that makes you a very good trusted advisors who needs to stitch the opportunities, futures. But what I've learned in life is that it is important to accelerate in the, in the journey. But what is really very critical is that you don't get off track. If a train gets off track, it takes quite days sometime to put it again back on the track. So important to be on the track, cautiously optimistic, but be in the present while looking for the future.
Thank you. Next question which comes to mind, and which I, in my earlier days as CFO, used to face. There is a delicate balance which exists between challenging the CEO versus aligning with him as a partner, and this is such a delicate balance because you would have seen the number of CFOs who faced imprisonment in past, especially in the earlier years of corporate governance, that we found that CFOs were targeted and they faced the music. At the same time, you have to align with the CEO in a manner that you support growth, you support profitability, and you are able to take the business where it should be. Uh, I would request now Mr. Rahul to throw some light. Yeah.
I think, this is a very, very important dynamic that, we all as professionals experience in our day-to-day functioning in our companies. If you go a couple of decades back, the CFO role was largely maybe, let's say, 50-60% accounting and bookkeeping, 20% that of a leader, 20% that of a protector. I guess in today's dynamic world, it's these percentages have just reversed. A CFO is expected to be, a leader, at the same time play that protector and, role of custodian of financial statements and financial accuracy. And increasingly, there is that need to do the balancing act between the challenger role and at the same time drive alignment with the CEO and the larger organization. I think there is no science or a mathematical formula to do this. It's all about mindset. One needs to draw the boundaries. Challenge is valuable only when it's, protecting some long-term value creation or driving long-term value creation. Alignment is essential when, the organization commits to a particular strategy or direction. A CFO need not be the CEO's contrarian all the time or the cheerleader. The role of a CFO is to be a custodian and drive sustainable value. And I guess, what comes to my mind is, how do you do this? It's easier said than done. I guess in the role of a CFO finance function, you need to ensure that you challenge assumptions, you don't challenge motives, because then that gets personal and distorts, the pitch completely. Once the organization has decided on a particular strategy or a path, then you throw your weight behind it, rather than, there's no need to act as the opposition party, like, in our country we are very used to. So you need to ensure that once a decision has been taken, there's alignment. You as a senior part of the team, throw your weight behind that and ensure that the job gets done, whether it's your role of, raising capital, mobilizing funds, the KPIs, KRIs, or, driving any other metric to ensure the, project or that transformation is successful. Also, I guess another important thing that comes to my mind is one should know when to push back and when to lean in. When it comes to the risk posture of the company or ethics or what the company stands for, long-term value, and if that comes at risk, obviously you start playing the protector role. But otherwise, it has to be ensuring that if there is a particular project which requires the whole might of the CFO or the finance function, then you lend that support and ensure that everybody is aligned and drives in the same direction. So I guess these are the few things, Ajay, that I would say.
So you brought
drive
in a
alignment.
very interesting perspective. In fact, the point that I was trying to raise was what I faced in my initial career as a CFO. So while you called it pushback, I'll call it conflict management. How do you handle that conflict with the CEO as a CFO, where you need to protect the interests of the company, the ethics, the values, the integrity part of it? So would you like to throw some light on this aspect?
Sure. So, look, this honesty is a tricky one, which I am sure all of us probably go through in our daily lives, right? And this becomes far more trickier. I mean, when let's say the CEO is a professional, as against if the CEO is a promoter as well. right? So that's another aspect, and I guess most of the points well covered. But the point is, it's basically the mindset and the balance that you kind of need to maintain. And to my mind, the one thing which is very important is that you need to win the trust of the person, right? And as long as the organization and you are aligned in terms of the long-term objectives, the conflicts, yes, they will come. Will you have to stand up against? Not necessarily in public. You can probably try and resolve it in a one-on-one discussion instead of trying to make it a public discussion. And that's how you end up balancing it. So as rightly said, there is no probably right or wrong answer. It's largely situational as well. And this needs to be managed. And once you manage, that's where the long-term objectives of the organization and yours get aligned. And that's where you look at the success of the organization.
Thank you. Coming to the next aspect, which is how finance leads during crisis movements. Some light was thrown by him when he talked about the tariffs which were imposed by US, and particularly for his business, where 40% of the business comes from US. So I'll request again Rahul to throw some light on this aspect.
In my career, I have seen disruption in two of the jobs that I've worked in, and it's never very easy to navigate when there is chaos. But I guess finance as a function is what everybody looks up to. When there is volatility, when there is chaos, when there is uncertainty, and finance in a way acts as the shock absorber. You need to present a path of stability. You need to keep the relevant stakeholders, and stakeholders could be the board, it could be investors, it could be your bankers, at times customers, surely employees. You need to ensure that you are updating them, communicating with them regularly, and conveying that things are moving back to normal. At the same time, I guess, whenever there is volatility, chaos, or disruption, it also, the CFO should also, or the finance function, I would say, because it's a team end of the day, should also clearly seize the opportunity and distinguish between fat and muscle, right? You need to trim the fat for sure, but at the same time, ring fence the muscle. What is the muscle? It's what your company stands for. It could be your product. It could be, the basic pillars on which the company thrives. I think in these times, communication is the key, because communication brings in transparency. Communication ensures that the panic that sets in is taken care of. It lends credibility to all the stakeholders. And I think eventually when the tide turns, it puts the company in a very, I would say, good position to bounce back and ensure that, you deliver your objectives. So I guess also, one Ajay, important thing that I've realized is that at times our function needs to be an opportunist as well of disruption, because this is the time when the organization is most amenable to call it restructuring, call it resizing, you can look into your existing processes and systems and bring about a change. So I think it's also an opportunity at times to drive home better processes, systems, and way of working. It could be operating model as well. So that's the way I look, at a disruption and what the role the CFO can play.
Correct. You are Rahul in that sense. Just emphasizing on your point, recent times, as I was speaking, there is a tariff, as you all know. US government has imposed a 50% tariff on all the products that are being imported in the US. Apart from that kind of risk, it gave me an opportunity as well. The kind of size of my company, I am the leader in the US. Almost 55% of the Basmati rice sold in the US is being done by my company. it gave me an opportunity. The smaller players were not able to absorb that kind of duty. Because of my financial strength, this 55% now has increased to 70%. So every kind of disruption gives an opportunity as well. How you look into it, you need to balance it out. Yes, your balance sheet, as said, should be strong enough. We need to have a strong balance sheet. That gives an shock absorber. You need to have a popular brand. That gives a strong shock absorber. So at times, apart from margins, how you look forward creating a market share, increase in the market share. That gives me an opportunity. You might have, as you know, for acquiring a customer, you do all kind of promotions. But this kind of opportunity gave me an opportunity for acquiring a new customer, giving me a seek in the homes of the household. So this kind of opportunity might not come. So it is a blessing in disguise in that aspect.
Correct. Now coming to our last focus area, which is where do we move on? What adjacent domains like policy, venture capital, ESG, digital leadership are natural step for the CFOs to move on? And I'll request Deepak to, I think, throw some light on this.
So, okay. So when I look at, let's say, the alternate carriers, I think, Ajay, what you rightly mentioned in terms of the areas, right? Whether it is ESG, whether it is policy, I mean, there are enough colleagues, honestly, may not become a CFO in another organization, but they have started their own CFO advisory practice. People have done, let's say, the financial transformations and all. So as a CFO, apart from the finance domain, investment, can you be a, let's say, a diligence expert in a private equity fund or a venture capital fund? Yes, you can. Why not? Because you have been so closer to the numbers, you have been so closer to the operating metrics and also the understanding of the business and the organization, right? Other than that, there are ESG functions while it is still evolving and probably the CFOs are the best place. There are IPO advisory functions which people have taken up, right? So multiple dimensions, right? In a career, let's say, which spans 10, 20 years, you have gone through numbers, you've gone through compliance, you've gone through business metrics and all. So depending on the person and the mindset, one can look at a variety of, let's say, roles later on.
Correct. Similarly, you know how you transition from a CFO to a CEO or say an MD position. So Deepak, would you like to throw some light on this? Oh, sorry.
You can
You can continue on that CEO transition.
So that's a tricky one, honestly. But again, look, as a CEO transition, now once you have played your role as, let's say, the CFO for last few years, right? I mean, you understand the business and it's each and every function of the business, for one way or the other, fall into your lab, right? I mean, whether through the numbers, through the compliance, through the growth and everything. So are you in a place to become a CEO? Yes, you are. Now, how do you take up that role? Of course, that's personality, that's also a drive to kind of, let's say, have a vision of growing the business to from, let's say, 1 to 100, 1 to 10, whatever you want to call it. So, yes, I mean, there will be always be a competition. Can the sales guy, who is typically the sales head and all, who will be expected to become, let's say, the next CEO, you'll have to then challenge them in their own domain and all. And that's where the transition can be.
Aditya would like to say something.
Yeah. So I guess, that's the first and the best alternate for CFOs as an alternate career for me. CFOs became CEOs. Let me give some numbers. In FTSE 100, almost 1/3 of the board has been constituted or represented by the CFOs who are from the finance background as a CEOs, right? So for me, it's a journey what, we all should look forward to. I guess we already have few of the basic dimensions which is required for it. Nobody should be able to do better capital allocations, risk management, the business continuity plan than us, right? We all understand very clearly that a top line is a vanity, a bottom line is a sanity, but a cash is a reality. Now, with all these things under our belt, which we can understand very well, I think there are only few basics, learnings which we need to adopt to move to this journey. For me, first things comes about a phrase which I really love quite a most in my life. We all do things right in our right. So, right, there's a difference of doing things right. We all do things right. To move to this journey, we need to think through that what are the right things to be done in life. And there's quite a difference between doing things right and the right things in the life. So we need to look in this journey, what are the things which we can look about beyond the numbers. It's not about the numbers. Numbers are the outcome of the assumptions. Let me give you a very interesting story. Once the HR head went to the finance department to say, okay, we are going to recruit or we are going to give training to so-and-so people. And the answer was that, okay, what if we, from the finance side, generally, typically, the answer was that, what happens if we give them the training and they leave after that? Obviously, yes, there's a risk involved, right? So there's no second doubt about it. But a CEO thought process would be always that, what happens if those guys stays back? Is it worth to have an untrained employees with us rather than taking a bet on whether I train an employee and if they leaves, right? So it's all about thinking of the future. Numbers are the outcome. We need to think about how we are contributing to that part. So that for me is really very critical. Assumptions, look into the assumptions, look into the sales building blocks, look about the marketing ROI, ROS, the cost of acquisitions. Those things really matter. Numbers is like an outcome, as I said. So I think that's the really very critical part. And second is all about people management. So perhaps in my journey, what I have learned is that we are very fascinated about, the P&L, as we call it, the profit and loss account. But for the CEO journey, the P&L, I have transitioned into people and leadership. P&L, people and leadership, and just not profit and loss account. Similarly, balance sheet is not BNS. For a CEO, it has to be balancing the sides, because it's very critical that how do you work along the people. It's never about taking a stand or taking a call that, okay, this is what it is. Sometimes obviously we have to, but that has to be a later stage. We need to first see how we are balancing the sides and taking the people together. Because as there's a saying, the fastest speed of a group is what the slowest person in the group is all about. So I think those typical few things of thinking beyond, thinking what are the right things in the life, working beyond the numbers of the assumptions, working on the people, working on your individual presence, interacting with more and more outsiders as well as vendors, making the stakeholder managements are really critical. But one last baseline for all this is that how you navigate yourself, how you become resilient. It's all about compartmentalizing your issues into different parts, not carrying from each other, and staying cool and calm. So I think that's the fundamental, and that should be the alternate career and the profile what CFO should look forward to.
Very well put. Last question, and we have just 2 minutes left. So what do you see as a legacy that we can leave for future leaders of future generations in terms of our experiences as seasoned finance professionals? So I'll request Suman to say a few words. We have limited time. Suman and Dave or Aditya can throw some light.
Yeah, I think all of us feel nice when we leave legacies behind, right? And legacies are it basically says that when you leave an organization, what stays, and that actually defines a good leader. I always say, the best leaders are the ones who can train their people to make themselves redundant, because that's the legacy you leave in people. So I think going forward, and we were, just having a conversation before the session started on the talent of today, and the finance talent of today. I think one of the biggest legacies as a finance leader that we can leave behind now is actually build a learning culture, build an organization which is enabled, which can take your company forward once you've gone behind. So what's the talent you need? What's the new finance functional organizations? Because structures and organizations are changing. I sometimes dread to think what finance function organization structures will look like 10 years down the line with the way digital is taking over the world. A lot of the jobs of finance actually are getting disrupted, right? So one of the key legacies I think as a finance leader would like to leave behind is a talent which knows how to learn, relearn and upskill constantly. Second, in terms of digital infrastructure and automating processes, which enables a company to scale without you, just as well it could scale with all the brute force that with your traditional ways of working, we would have put in the past. And the third and last one is building really sharp performance frameworks for the company, because what you track is what you deliver. And I think finance plays a key role in ensuring that the organization, the entire executive committee has the right performance frameworks, which will keep it in good stead in the long term. So yeah, those are my 3 bills.
Yeah, let the alarm goes off, then we'll see. Yeah. Okay, so quickly, 3 things if you'll ask me. What I would like to leave as a legacy is that a compliant organization, a more efficient finance function when I leave, whether it is digital or any process improvement or anything that leaves a very agile and efficient organization. The third one will be that how have I left or invested in the future bets. So these 3 things I would love to be known for or remembered for. Whereas in a personal note, if you'll ask me, I would like to see a successful CFO who creates more CFOs for the future.
So this brings an end to this panel, and I'm sure you would have learned some few things from this esteemed panel that I had, the seasoned professionals from various companies. And I would thank you for being a very patient listener. I know after lunch you are waiting for your award, so we'll not take your time more. Thank you. Thanks a lot.